Today we're going to talk about a tool called the black swan. I suppose many of you have heard of the old story, the Greeks and the Romans. They thought there were no black swans. In fact, people wondered, are swans ever black? And there was a general belief in the olden times that there was no such thing as a black swan, even though in mythical stories there were stories about black swans. But nobody had ever seen one. Until finally, later in time, they did find a black swan. And that's where the term comes from, the black swan, that it is a very unusual event. This tool actually comes out of the work of a guy by the name of Nassim Taleb. Around 2007, wrote a book, in fact, by the title, Black Swan. And he observed that certain economic phenomenon, certain events in corporate life that you think will never occur, sometimes they have an effect and sometimes they don't matter. To understand this concept, let's take a few examples. Let us say I ask you to go out there, go out to the world and find out for me what is the average height of a human being. And you go out there and you take 1,000 samples. And there you come back and you tell me that the average height of a human being is 5 feet 11 inches. And I go, I'm not sure the 1,000 samples are adequate. Why don't you go out and find one more person? I think it'll be better. So you go out, you walk right out, and there is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 7 feet 2 inches tall. You add him to the mix, you have 1,001 samples now. Compute the average. Is your 5 feet 11 inch average of the past, is it going to change very much when you added that 1,001 sample in of 7 feet 2 inches? Chances are no. If you do the math, you'll find it'll still be pretty close to 5 feet 11 inches. That extra one person, as unusually tall as that person was, didn't change the average much. Let's say, for example, I ask you, go find out what is the average weight of a human being. And there you go, and 1,000 samples later, you come back and you tell me that the average weight of a human being is 163 pounds. I go, no, I'm not so sure that's an adequate sample. Go take one more sample, and out you go, and there is Yokozuna, the sumo wrestler, and he weighs 650 pounds. You add that sample in, you have 1,001 samples. Is your 163 pound average, is that going to change with the introduction of the 1,001 sample? Chances are, no, not much, hardly in fact. Well, let's take a third example. We want to find out what is the net worth of an average person. And you go out there, out of the world, you take 1,000 samples, and you find out that the average net worth of an individual is $240,000. I go, after 1,000 samples, and I go, you know what, let's take one more sample. And you go out, and out on the street, you walk out, and there is Warren Buffett. $67 billion net worth. You take that sample in, add it up, now compute the new average. Now the new average of the 1,001 people is going to go from your $240,000 to an unbelievable amount. Why is that? Why is it in the case of the net worth, that extra sample completely changed the picture of the world, whereas in the case of height and in the case of weight, the extra sample didn't? Because Warren Buffett is a black swan. In certain distributions, you have black swans. The black swan completely changes the overall picture. So when you look at phenomenons in economy, such as the market crash of 2008 in the US stock markets, if you take certain phenomenons in historical events, if you take certain possible scenarios in your company, good and bad, the good things that could happen and the bad things that could happen to your company, ask yourself, is there a black swan? Is there an event that can occur in your company that causes such considerable change in the average performance of the company. The events that either positive or negative that could cause a significant change, you have to take more seriously no matter how unlikely they are. You have to find some way of ensuring that those events are either you're on the lookout for, you're watching whether they happen, and if so, what are you going to do about it? Those events are called black swans. Do you have a black swan lurking in your business?